Over $1 billion in art sales at the New York Art Auction Week a couple of weeks ago. Leonardo da Vinci's Salvator Mundi is back in the art world news, and not with good news. But today we're going to start a conversation on the art world reviews and thoughts on interesting little feature, not interesting, but concerning if you deal in Chinese art and antiquities. Will the trade war, the tariff war, affect Chinese art and antiques? All that and more today on Behind the Gavel with Jason. Let me just go ahead and share this on my page. Share now. So the Trump tariff wars with China and other countries is heating up, and it's been in the news a lot for the last year or so. Lots of ebbs and flows, steel, cars, agriculture. It seems like everything's on the table, including art and antiquities, which is a bit unusual. There's not been a lot of publicity in the regular press about it, but in the art world, it's getting a lot of traction for those especially who deal in and collect in Chinese art and antiquities. And it's interesting because in 2009, the United States, along with China, put in place a ban of exporting from China, importing into the United States, Chinese antiquities. Kind of follows along with UNESCO and other international trade organizations that China is wanting to repatriate a lot of their historical artifacts. And one way to do that is to stop items from leaving the country. So in 2009, there was a ban placed on exporting or importing into the United States antiquities from China. So that's already, there's nothing to have tariffs on there. Art is similar. So what is interesting, and the Chinese ban is already, it affects bronze, stone, porcelain, ceramics, textiles. It kind of covers the gamut. There's always been an art and antique exemption for tariffs. But what's interesting is that the tariff wouldn't apply to China necessarily because they're not exporting anything anyway. But if you were to buy Chinese art and antiquities from a European gallery or a European art auction or similar, you would have to pay imports on the items because they were originally made in China. And that 25% tariff is on the table. It creates a lot of conversation, a lot of thought, a lot of curiosities. Peter Tompa, who's a Washington, D.C. based attorney, he works with lobbies and groups for museums and dealers. He was quoted as saying, if art is duty-free to begin with, how do you impose a 25% tariff on it? So as oftentimes the case with government, they don't think through things necessarily. And so it's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out as far as importing and exporting things in the Chinese tariff on antiques, antique art and sculpture, things like that from China coming through other countries. Really curious to watch how that turns out. And we'll be watching that here pretty closely. More as a curiosity, we don't import things from China, but I know we have collectors in our customer base that collect Chinese antiquities. And I'm sure they're watching this pretty well too. Thanks for watching, Johan. If anybody watching has any questions, comments, thoughts, or concerns, go ahead and post them here. If you like what I'm saying, hit the like button and share with your friends. New York Art Week just happened a couple weeks ago. There was over 2,000 lots offered between Christie, Sotheby's, Phillips, and others. And over $1 billion in art was sold in that week. Some of the highlights, Claude Monet's, there was a Claude Monet painting sold of haystacks, brilliantly lit, sunlit haystacks. It was the most expensive lot of the week. It sold for $110,700,000. Jeff Koons has regained the title as the most expensive living artist at auction. His Silver Bunny sculpture sold for $91,100,000. Robert Rauschenberg was the third highest lot sold during the week at $88,800,000 for Buffalo 2, which is about 5 times his previous high water mark. Interesting, there was obviously a lot of hype around it, but there was no major pre-auction estimates. The highest estimate was in the $70 million range, although 3 pieces exceeded that value between all the auction houses. So there wasn't a singular hit, a singular painting that was garnering all the attention. It was a good solid week. A lot of interest. Approximately 80% of all lots offered sold. which is a good sign for the market. And about 50 artists' records were set or broke during this week, including many by female artists and artists of color, including a Lee Krasner, sold at $10,500,000, and a Barclay Hendricks that sold just a couple of years ago. When it resold this week, it brought about 4 times what it brought then, and it just sold recently for $3.7 million. Another interesting tidbit during the week, Sotheby's had to delay their opening one evening from 7 to 7:15 because the presidential motorcade and service detail is going to be in the area sometime late afternoon, early evening, so they just pushed their auction back to accommodate that situation. Which brings us to the story that keeps on giving in the art world for the last couple of years, the Leonardo da Vinci Salvator Mundi. Hard to believe we're talking about this again, but I think we'll be talking about this for years and years and years to come. Quick background on this, if you haven't followed it or you kind of forgot the details. Obviously created back in the 16th century, 17th century. It was sold in 1958 at an auction. At that point, it was thought to be the work of Bernardino Luini, who was a student, I believe, a follower of Rembrandt's. And it brought $60, 45 pounds at an auction at that point. Rediscovered in 2005 at a United States auction house. I believe it sold for about $1,100. It was under $10,000 as just an antique painting. After doing extensive restoration work on it because it was in really poor condition, the buyers at that time, between conservation efforts and studying, determined that it was a Leonardo da Vinci. There was many organizations and experts at the time who said that it was by him, which prompted it to sell privately through Sotheby's. Sotheby's offers private client services like this for the broker individual pieces. They sold the piece privately to Yves Bouvois for between $75 and $80 million in 2013. Shortly thereafter, Yves sold it to Dmitry Rublev, who we've talked about in the news many, many times in regards to this, in regards to political dealings. So, a Russian billionaire. He bought the painting for $127,500,000 in 2013. In fact, he actually sued Yves Bouvier, and I think that lawsuit is still in court based upon the quote-unquote excessive markup of the painting between the time that Bouvier bought it and sold it to Rublev. That all brought us to 2017 when Dmitry decided to sell the painting, offered it through Christie's. They had a huge worldwide tour of the painting, made a huge PR splash with it, spent tons of money, tons of effort to create interest and excitement, sold it in a contemporary works auction, and it brought $450 million from the Saudi Prince Badr bin Abdullah bin Mohammed bin Farhan Al Saud for the Louvre Abu Dhabi, and that's where the trail of the Salvator Mundi goes cold. Good morning, Mercedes. How are you doing this morning? Thanks for watching. We're talking about the art week and art auctions and review of the week. Right now, we're talking about Salvator Mundi's Leonardo da Vinci Salvator Mundi painting that has come up in the news again just this week. And the reason for that, since the time it was bought for the Louvre Abu Dhabi a couple of years ago, it's not really been seen publicly since. There's been a lot of speculation about it. There's been all kinds of crazy stories. The original showing of it, which is scheduled for September after it was bought, was postponed. That message was relayed via a tweet. For a while, it was considered to be missing. It's being stored in a Switzerland storage unit right now. It was tied to a Trump conspiracy between Rublev. Rublev bought property from Trump back in the day, so they think there's a conspiracy out there that it's the money's being laundered back to Dmitry through the Saudis. All kinds of crazy things have happened. Thanks for watching, Cassie. If you have questions or thoughts, let me know. So this week, the Louvre Paris issued a statement about the painting. The Louvre Paris is scheduling a Leonardo da Vinci show in Paris in October, celebrating the 500th anniversary of Leonardo's death. And of course, the Louvre Paris has the largest collection of Leonardos in the world, and there are paintings being brought in from all over the world, from museums to be shown at this mega show. You have to have a reservation. You have to have those reservations basically in process now. And they obviously reached out to the Louvre Abu Dhabi and Prince Mohammed and said, hey, we want to look at including this painting in the show. Yeah, it gets even better, Mercedes. Check this out. So the Louvre Paris had their experts look at the painting and talk about how it is going to be included in their show. And they said that they would be listing it as from the workshop of Leonardo da Vinci and not of the hand or by the hand of Leonardo da Vinci, which makes a bit of a difference. We've had a conversation on the page this week about this. I posted a link to an article about it. Basically, what they're saying is that they think the painting came from that time frame. It's an antique painting, no disputing there. But they think that Leonardo had nothing to do with painting that painting. There was never a brush with paint on his hand touching that canvas. And so by calling it a workshop piece, it helps create and fill in holes in a larger story of Da Vinci's work and his influence, but it obviously doesn't have the same importance as a work by him. And because of that, Louvre Abu Dhabi is not releasing the painting to the Louvre in Paris because they can't have it shown with that attribution because it completely decimates any value now and in the future of that painting. And it's been an interesting thing to follow. We were all excited and thrilled to watch the auction and report on it and talk about it over the last couple of years. Yeah, from by the hand of to the workshop of is a huge difference. One estimate I read, obviously it was worth $450 million at auction a couple of years ago. An article I just read about it said that basically a workshop painting would be worth in the range of $1.5 million. So that math is just ridiculous. It's not even 1% of the value. It's 0.25% of the value that was paid 2 years ago. So I am sure that this story is nowhere near done being told. I'm sure there's going to be lawsuits placed all up and down the chain. I'm sure Muhammad's going to go back to Christie's, and Christie's is going to go back to Dimitri, and Dimitri's going to go back to Sotheby's, and Sotheby's is going to go back to the guys who found it and sold it. So it's going to be, it's been a fun story so far. Thanks, Gary. Thanks for watching. But yeah, it's been an interesting saga so far, and I don't think we're anywhere near the end of it because, like I said, if you spent $450 million on a painting that someone of authority is telling you is worth $1,500,000, you're going to be upset and take legal actions. And possibly, who knows what's going to happen. I'm not going to speculate anything more on that, but it's definitely going to have major repercussions and reverberations throughout the art market because it's going to take such a huge bit of time and effort from whoever's involved with it to settle this out and get everything squared away. Sam, because whoever's work it is, it's still a work of art and an antique, but without the prestigious name. Absolutely, it's like thinking you're buying a house in the best neighborhood, only to find out you bought it next to a crack house. I obviously I don't have and never probably will have $450 million to spend on any single asset, but I can't even imagine spending that kind of money. I can't imagine spending $10,000 on a painting, thinking it's worth an artist and having it come out to be later worth $100 because it wasn't by the same person. It's kind of the same thing, right? Basically $45,000 to $150 is kind of the same kind of correlation, and it's going to be fun and interesting to watch. And it's almost like driving by a traffic accident. You can't help but look, even though it's morbid. Same kind of thing here. We can't help but look, even though it's definitely a morbid situation in the art industry, and kind of a black eye in the industry. To be honest with you, you really have to, and really puts into crystal clear vision how important it is to buy from people you know and trust. And if you're having things in place you can never have guarantees in this life, but to do the best you can before you start investing money in art, antiques, real estate, whatever you're interested in, make sure you know what you're buying and try and have as many safeguards in place before you buy it and protections in place for after you purchased it. so that if you bought significant pieces of art or bought significant pieces of jewelry, you know what it is, and you have that information and documentation and acknowledgement by people that it is what it is before you spend serious money. Again, thank you all so much for watching. It's finally, we've had a couple of days without rain here in Kansas City. It's been beautiful and sunny. The tornado the other night stopped essentially, it broke up around 10 miles from where I'm sitting right now. Thank goodness it didn't hit downtown or more populous areas. Linwood, Kansas here got really, really devastated. But last I heard, there was no deaths and very few injuries because there was a lot of time to, a lot of people, there's time to prepare before it hit anybody. So that's a good news about it. Obviously, there's tornadoes all over the country and severe weather going on right now. It's that time of year, but hopefully you're safe and secure where you're at, and will be for the rest of the season. Thank you all so much for watching. If you have questions about today's episode, go ahead and post a comment here. If you're watching this on YouTube, go ahead and post a comment in the comments below. You can always send us a private message here on Facebook, through our Facebook page. You can drop us an email at info@KC Auction Company, letter K, letter C, auctioncompany.com. And you can always send us give us a phone call like that. I did apologize for having that on. Give us a phone call at 816-283-3633, 816-283-3633. If you have any questions about what we talked about today, questions about the industry, and antiques, estates in the future, go ahead and post them here. If you have questions about things you own, we're always answering questions, emails about specific items, and that's kind of what we do on a day-to-day basis. Thank you all so much for watching. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you next week.